Finding reference angles. Now, when we're talking about finding reference angles, we're looking at, we focus in on the terminal side of the angle, and we find the angle measure back to the nearest x-axis. So again, if we're looking to find reference angles, we want to take a look at that terminal side and trace it back and find the angle measure to the nearest x-axis. So we're going to look at about 3 examples here of finding reference angles. And this first one, we're asked to find the reference angle for 5 pi over 4, which I have graphed here. Of course, my program puts it in degree measure. But this is the angle measure, 5 pi over 4. Now, the fact that it's something pi over 4 should tell me that my reference angle is probably going to be 45 degrees, but we're going to do it anyway. So I want to find this angle here from this terminal side back to the x-axis. And if I were to do that mathematically, I could say, since we're going back to the x-axis, and here on the x-axis on this negative side, we know this is pi. So I could just say, well, okay, 5 pi, let me write this a little better. 5 pi over 4 minus pi. And of course I could convert this negative pi minus pi to 4 pi over 4. Let's just do that. 5 pi over 4 minus 4 pi over 4, so I can get a common denominator. And my reference angle is pi over 4. And again, anything pi over 4 is going to be some type of multiple of 45 degrees if I were to convert that from radian to degree mode. So reference angle, we take the terminal side, we go back to the nearest x-axis. Let's look at one more. All right, so here we've got, find the reference angle of negative 240 degrees. In other words, we're going 240 degrees in a clockwise direction rather than a counterclockwise. And again, I'm looking to try to find the angle from the terminal side back to the nearest x-axis. And so since we're in degree mode here, over here on this side of the x-axis, we know that's 180 degrees. And if I were to take the absolute, let's say, well, I'm coming back there, I'm going from a negative direction, going back to the x-axis, I could just say, okay, well, 240 degrees minus 180, get back to the 180. My reference angle then is 60 degrees. And so this reference angle is 60 degrees. Now, all of this is going to be helpful when we start looking at special angles, 30, 45, 60 degree angles, and finding the actual trig values. But we'll do that in our next exercise. But until then, we're going to look at one more. Now this time we have an angle of 390 degrees, excuse me, which means we went all the way around the circle and then back into the first quadrant. And if I'm looking to find that angle measure, since it goes beyond 360, I can say, okay, well, 390 minus 360, and you can see it actually computed the reference angle for me there, equals 30 degrees. Again, this is the angle measure coming from this terminal side back to the nearest x-axis. And so my reference angle here is 30 degrees. And again, we're going to see this really come into play and be helpful to us when we take a look next at using reference angles to find trigonometric values.